Hello and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast. I am your host, Fabrice, and joining me here in the Murrieta studios is Dr. David Burns. Hi, David.
Hi, Fabrice.
Dr. David Burns has been a pioneer in the development of cognitive therapy, and he is the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 20 languages. He is an emeritus adjunct clinical professor of psychiatry at the Stanford University School of Medicine. This is episode 51 of the Feeling Good podcast, and this is our third and last segment of the live session with Marilyn. This is going to be really interesting because we're moving on to the methods. And one thing I noticed is that Matt and David, you spent the majority of this segment going through the mood journal and doing the identification of the distortions and what you call the straightforward technique or talk back, where you find the positive side of the reframing. And only later did you start using some other techniques like the double standard technique and the externalization of voices. In fact, I feel like, the externalization of voices is kind of like your favorite technique, David, and the double standard is your favorite technique, Matt. So you had like this little debate between the two of you of what technique would be used first. And then at the end of this segment, you're also doing a little bit of relapse prevention, which is a really important part of the team CBT model. Normally, this would take probably an entire session, but we're tacking it on to this session in this case. And we did a podcast recently on relapse prevention, so people already have a sense of what that is. Maybe you want to say a few words about this?
About relapse prevention?
Yeah.
Well, I always feel concerned that if an individual experiences even a very profound recovery in a brief period of time in therapy, that it would be a disservice to them if their expectation leaving that experience was that they had maintained a perfect state of mind that would be enduring, that they would never again suffer from depression or anxiety, because that's unrealistic. And then when they do have a relapse, it would catch them off guard, and then they would feel even more hopeless. Mm-hmm. And in clinical work, oftentimes I'll have a patient come in who's already done fantastic work. Maybe they've done exposure to overcome a phobia, and then their phobia has come back, but they were never informed that they had to maintain their work. They had to continue to face their fears over time in order to keep the phobia at bay. And so they thought that the therapy wasn't effective. And really they just needed to keep facing that fear. If you've got a bridge phobia, you overcome it pretty easily in a single session. But then you have to drive over a bridge once a day for a week, and once a week for a month, and then probably monthly or every 2 months, or that phobia will come back.
Yeah.
Another way to look at the relapse prevention training from the point of view, that's a great example, and so true for anxiety. From depression, when people come with depression, like you, Marilyn, they're often into all or nothing thinking and their negative thoughts. I'm a loser, I'm no good, I'm defective, I'm a failure, I've never had an intimate relationship, whatever the thoughts are. So they see themselves as a zero with the all or nothing thinking. Then in the course of the session, they realize these are distortions, and they recover, and you tend to feel euphoric, and you go to the all of the all or nothing thinking. You say, now I'll be happy forever. My problems are solved. I'm worthwhile after all. And you may even be feeling that right now, that once you get to enlightenment, it feels so obvious and easy, you can't imagine how you'd ever be other than the way you are right now.
Yeah.
And so if you don't prepare the patient for relapse, they feel like the rug has been pulled out from under them, and the therapist loses all credibility. And some people get so despondent they can become suicidal at that point, thinking that all that improvement was a fluke. And when you go from a euphoric feeling, like you're probably in a pretty heady place right now at the end of the session, and then when the patient suddenly relapses 3 weeks later, or a day later, or a month later, the shock is tremendous, because the contrast. See, if you've been depressed for weeks or months or years, you got used to it and gave up on yourself. And then if you suddenly say, wow, it is possible for me to feel great joy and intimacy and worthwhileness, oh, this is wonderful. And then that bad thing slaps you and comes back, as it always will, and you're not prepared for it. It can be pretty devastating. The good news is, if you prepare patients for it, with the method we'll illustrate in this segment, is in my experience has been very effective.
Yeah.
And that's a higher level of recovery when a patient has experienced a relapse and then use that method on their own to get back on track. Then they feel so confident, because they don't even have to be afraid of relapse after that.
Yeah, exactly.
I like to think of it as when you fall in love with someone, you feel like you'll never fall out of love, and sure enough,
you do.
Well, I don't know about you, David, but a couple of things about this segment. So, for people who have looked at the recovery circle, this has been presented in the previous podcast. You have the first 4 techniques, and we've talked about empathy and agenda setting. But the next ones are identifying the distortion and the straightforward technique. And, we often talk about those as basic techniques, not the most powerful. We sometimes even downplay them, but they seem to have been really effective in this case.
That's exactly right. And in the old days, before I had the paradoxical agenda setting developed, and I was just doing traditional cognitive therapy, they weren't very effective. I mean, I would say people would find 6 distortions in their thoughts, and then it was like pulling teeth to get them to crush the thought with challenge it with a positive thought, and it would take weeks or months sometimes. But now, when you do the paradoxical agenda setting, and the patient's resistance is gone, sometimes you just get 1 or 2 distortions. The patient spontaneously comes up with a positive thought that crushes the negative thought, and you'll see that in this segment. And so we actually never got around to identifying most of the distortions in Marilyn's thoughts, because just 1 or 2 distortions, and she jumped in there and clobbered the negative thought.
That's right. I
with the straightforward technique.
Yes. So you're blending 2 methods at the same time.
Yeah.
And also every time that Marilyn would come up with a reason why her thinking was distorted, you'd say, write it down.
Yeah.
So everything that she came up with was written into her daily mood log.
Yeah.
The other thing was...
I don't know if people got what you said right now, but it was really important and really powerful, I thought. And before I had the paradoxical agenda setting, I used to, in workshops, I would say, you always want to do the straightforward technique early on, but it's only worked twice in my career. So you just do it to fail and get on to the next technique. And I used to teach it that way and say, you'll see why the patient can't talk back to their own negative thoughts, because they'll come up with really lame positive thoughts.
Yeah.
Now, the straightforward technique works almost all the time. It's been a night and day a change, that the patients themselves can usually come up with powerful, positive thoughts that are 100% true and that crush the negative thoughts.
It's almost too bad. I really liked using the methods.
I know. And it does make the therapy seem almost ridiculously easy.
It goes by too quick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to repeat myself again, but I always say this, is that the agenda setting part is the really revolutionary part of Team CBT, because that is what makes the whole thing work.
Yeah.
Some people may be familiar with motivational interviewing, which has some similar aspects, and it's all about taking the paradoxical side of the resistance. Also, at some point I noticed that there was a lot of humor being interjected into the session, and you had Marilyn cracking up, and this was quite a departure from the way this all started. And I noticed, especially you, David, you're very good at humor. sometimes too good because it throws me off track. But how do you put that into? I don't know if this can even be taught.
I don't know if it can be taught either, and I don't think all therapists would necessarily be able or need to use humor. You need to use your own personality, and we're all different. But I find that humor can be an affectionate way of connecting with a patient. Now, you have to be careful, because if you say something zany and the patient starts sobbing uncontrollably, then the humor was not very effective, and you better not do that. And there's times when you don't want to use humor, like if the patient is angry with you and then you use humor. It's like discounting their anger and being disrespectful. But, I've been doing these trauma workshops for the past 2 or 3 years, so I've probably done 50 live demonstrations like today with someone who's had severe trauma and horrible things. I mean, people have been raped and just all kinds of whatever you can imagine. I've had patients who were doing the live demos who've had that. And in most of those live demonstrations, there was a lot of laughter, and it allowed me to get closer to the patient in a way. And my way of doing it is just to make a nutty comment, just to be uninhibited enough to say something outrageous and goofy. That's how I do humor, and for some reason it seems to be endearing in many, like the story about God. Came to me in a vision, and I think laughter helps us not take ourselves so seriously. It's a kind of a natural antidote to these negative thoughts when we're so serious with ourselves and beating up on ourselves for every little flaw.
Mm-hmm. So a little bit of a technical point here for people who are not as familiar with the model is. When you started working in the Mood Journal, you kind of extracted some new negative thoughts out of Marilyn. Like, for example, when you looked at, I'm going to die sooner rather than later, David, you said, well, that's a fact. How is that a problem that it's a fact?
Yeah, well, you don't want to put a fact or an emotion in the negative thoughts column. The fact goes up at the top of the daily mood log, the upsetting event. It is an upsetting event that you have lung cancer and you are going to die in all likelihood sooner than later. So there's no distortions really in that. But what we can say is, why is that upsetting to you? What's the interpretation? See, the cognition, the negative thoughts, the negative cognitions, that's the interpretation of the event that creates the pain. So that's why I was saying, if that were true, what would it mean to you? Why would it be upsetting to you? And then Marilyn came up with 3 really good thoughts that contained a lot of distortions. Listeners will hear that in this segment, that we're able to challenge and defeat those thoughts.
And so that's the implementation of the individual downward arrow, which we've seen in a previous podcast.
Oh, that's a good point.
That'll give people a live experience of how you're using that.
Yeah.
Another aspect of that is that you can have, frequently I'll see questions showing up as cognitions on the daily mood log, and it's useful to translate the questions. They're usually should statements in disguise.
Right.
So if I've got a thought, why does this always happen to me?
Oh, yeah.
I'm really telling myself this shouldn't always be happening to me. And if we have a question, then we'll try to answer the question rather than refute the statement.
Yeah.
And similarly, if you have statements on the mood log, sometimes there are hidden should statements in there, like I have cancer but shouldn't.
Yeah. It's just unfair. Shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't happen. Yeah,
I
right.
didn't deserve it. Yeah. Is this our last recording dialogue about the segment?
Yes, it
about
is.
the live therapy?
Yes.
I had just one quick thing that crossed my mind, maybe somewhat inappropriate, but you mentioned, Matt, that because you're using the team therapy, you've been struggling and having to work at Draeger's grocery store begging groceries because
I kind of enjoy it, though, David. It adds a lot of meaning to my life.
Your patients are getting better so fast.
I sometimes get good tips.
Yeah, I'm just teasing, but I know that you need tremendous volume of patients because they recover so fast. You don't hang on to patients for years and years. But if any of the listeners were here in the Bay Area or wanted to come here for an intensive, would they be able to contact you if they wanted to work with you? Or?
Absolutely, I'm happy to shamelessly plug my
Go
website.
right ahead, yes.
It's MatthewMayMD.com, and you can schedule a free 15-minute phone call just to see if the problem that you're experiencing is one that would be amenable to the methods and treatment that I offer. Yeah. And I hope you'll give me a call.
Yeah, and I apologize if that seems commercial. We had no plan to do that, but that just popped into my mind, and it just seems natural that, there could be listeners who might want to...
Absolutely.
David, your check is in the mail.
Yes, thank you. And I've offered the same for Fabrice, but he keeps turning me down also. He's dating, and I've said, and he has this handsome picture on the podcast. I've said, contact Fabrice. French accent, good luck.
Moving right along.
Musically inclined.
So let's move on to the methods segment. Thank you so much.
This is going to seem so disrespectful. Which negative thought would you like to work on first? They're all really good ones, and it doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
I guess I'm going to die sooner than later.
Well, that's a fact, not a negative thought. And so we'd have to say, why is that upsetting to you?
Am I terrified of dying then? I'm terrified of dying.
Okay, and that's an emotion, right? And we've got that up here. So the question is, what is it about dying that you're afraid of?
Well, number one is suffering. Mm-hmm. Number two is being a burden to others. And number three is that there's no life after.
So let's put these here and focus on those. I may be a burden to others. Number two,
I may suffer.
I may suffer with physical pain.
Physical pain.
I suffer with physical pain. And number three, there may be no life after death. Now let's work on these one at a time. Which of these do you want to focus on first?
I may be a burden to others.
Okay, now the first thing, let's just identify the distortions in that thought, which is always a good first step.
All or nothing thinking.
Okay, and tell us why that's all or nothing. That's a really good call, but explain that.
Well, it's going to the absolute and black and white. It's not. There's no middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like you offer nothing to others, you're only a burden.
Yeah,
right.
Very selfish.
Yeah.
I think mental filter, dwelling on the negatives and ignoring the positives.
Mental filter and discounting the positives, and spell that out for us, because that's really good what you're saying right now. Why would that be mental filter and discounting the positive?
Well, if the situation was reversed, it would be an honor for me to help somebody, and it is an honor for me to help other people. And I don't focus on the negative. I focus on the positive.
So is that true what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely.
And can we? That's the number. That's this one here.
Yes, I may be a burden to others.
Just jot that here. It can be an honor to let other people help me, just as it's been an honor for me to
yes.
help others. Is that true?
Definitely.
I'd even wonder if there are other positives that might not be acknowledged in this thought that I'm unburdening others. I could just share my thought is that you're kind of showing an example of how to gracefully go through a process that's very scary and upsetting, and that I think a lot of other people are facing or will face. And it's just a gift you're giving today to be able to talk about these things and explore them in the way that we are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say you're burdening others at this moment?
No, not at all.
Tell me why.
Because I feel like this is an opportunity for me to get help and to also help others.
Can we write this right now? Right now, I'm not being a burden because I'm receiving help, and it's an opportunity to help others. Is that true or just bullshit?
No, it's true.
Write it down right now. Right now, I'm not being a burden, and I'm
opportunity to help others.
Actually, so you're saying that people who hear this podcast may be helped?
Definitely, I hope.
And is that real or just imaginary?
No, I think it's real.
So how much do you believe this between 0 and 100?
100.
How about the first sentence?
100 too.
100%. Now, we didn't ask you how much this. That was probably 100.
Definitely.
Now, also, because, see, part of the thing that's happening is you're popping like popcorn. Like all of a sudden, see, in the old days when we'd have a negative thought, like years ago, before we had the paradoxical agenda setting, we'd be fighting with the patient about a negative thought for weeks, sometimes months before they could crack it. And you're already, we're only into a couple of the distortions, and you're already crushing this one. Why is that happening so quickly?
Because I'm familiar with the team approach, but I also feel that something just switched in my brain. I can't really explain it. I think looking at the all or nothing and mental filter enabled me to turn that negative thought around.
Yeah, and it's also a should statement. I mean, we could have found a lot more distortions.
Yeah, definitely.
Self-blame, emotional reasoning, labeling, all of those.
Magnification.
Yeah, magnification. But we didn't need to do that. And my theory about it is that you're giving... See, your brain has these two parts to it. This self-hating, self-critical part that been causing your suffering, and that you're now giving the powerful, rational, intelligent, compassionate part of your brain is working with us in a team, and then that makes it easy to crush these thoughts. And the reason that that's happening is because you saw how this is not something, these thoughts aren't something to be ashamed of, but the manifestation of what's beautiful about you.
Definitely.
And so...
It's surprising.
Yeah.
That it bridges to the gap between those parts of the mind. The yin and the yang, and now they're together and there's peace and harmony again.
Yeah. And so... Now it's kind of easy to crush them out. How much do you believe this now that you're a burden, shouldn't be a burden?
I'd say 5.
Okay, just put that here.
I'm sorry.
And is that low enough on that one?
Yes.
Okay. So we can just move on to the next thought. We could have worked on that one more, but it becomes overkill. But now the next thought here is I may suffer with physical pain. What are the distortions in that thought?
Again, all or nothing thinking.
Put AON. And when you say it's all or nothing, what do you mean?
Well,
It's a good point, but spell it out for us a little bit.
Again, it just seems too black and white because one of the things that's, again, that has surprised me about this whole process is I don't feel sick. And
but you've had some pain.
I've had some pain, but not like a lot of people. For me, sometimes physical pain is a teacher. It reminds me that, for example, when I get a migraine headache, take some medication that helps instead of suffering.
Yeah.
So, figuring out ways to relieve it, or, walking on a regular basis, even though it may cause me to feel a little bit out of breath. So
are you saying I've had some pain and dealt with it reasonably well?
Yes, I've dealt with physical pain for the most part reasonably well. So it's a form of self-care.
Yeah. I've dealt with physical pain reasonably well, and I didn't mean to interrupt the distortion process. The problem I've been having recently is just one distortion, and all of a sudden you crush the thing. You don't get a chance to go into the other distortions.
Yeah, once you've paved the way to defeat the thought, and there's no resistance to doing that, it just goes up in smoke.
Yeah, right. What just for the purpose of argument, what are the other distortions in this thought?
A mental filter, discount the positives, jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, put that.
I'm sorry, David.
MF, DP, and then fortune telling.
JC, yeah.
Or JC, jumping to conclusions, fortune telling.
Labeling. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a comment on the all or nothing.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of the granddaddy of all distortions.
Yes.
And that all or nothing often applies in multiple dimensions, that it won't, that I'll experience pain and it'll be the most excruciating type of pain imaginable.
Yeah, and there'll be no treatment.
And there'll be no treatment.
No medication.
And it'll go on forever.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's multiple dimensions of all or nothing.
Yeah.
And there will be nothing good about it.
Yeah, right.
It's like multi-layer.
Yeah. Can you talk back to that? That the all or, can you filter out the all or nothing component of that thought to create a new positive thought here? Will your pain be the most excruciating imaginable pain at all times, forever?
No, the pain. My hope or assumption is that the pain will ebb and flow.
And the treatment will be adequate. Has that been your experience so far?
Definitely. Yeah. And the other thing, I think about is that I'm blessed because I have access to adequate treatment, and a lot of people don't.
Is that worth
That's
putting
a good
down?
reminder. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a reminder. Okay.
How much do you believe all of this here?
It's 100 too.
100. And then what has this one gone down to? You don't want to reduce this to 100 to 0, but what is it now?
I would say 15.
Okay, great. Now how about this next one?
There would be no life after death.
Yeah, this is an easy one.
I wish.
It is. What are the distortions in it?
All or nothing.
Yeah. Explain that.
Well, it's either or. I mean, it's either there's life after death or there's not. I mean, there's no...
Seems to me it is kind of an all or nothing thought. I'm not sure that's a distortion.
I can see it as we still have influence even after we're dead.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
That everyone we've ever interacted with has part of us.
You were talking about Obi.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I like that.
That's nice. So, so how would you? So you put AON here, and then what would you write over here? So, in your own case.
Well, in my own case, people and animals who have died continue to influence me, and I continue to be grateful for them.
Put that down.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a positive impact on a patient?
Yes, I have. I've saved people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
I know that.
So they're going on living because of you?
Yes. I can say that with absolute certitude. But how should I phrase it?
Just say I've had I've saved people's lives and had wonderful impact, and they're, they will not forget this.
Yeah, that'll have a ripple effect on their family members too.
Yeah. Well, I have another thing here. After you die, there will be something or nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what seems to be the worst for you?
Nothing.
But then there will be nothing to be upset about.
Well, let's try to imagine
and
what
if
that would
there's
be
something,
like.
then you can say, "Oh, this is good. This is a good deal." So,
surprise!
So it'll be a good thing, or there'll be nothing to be upset about. I don't know if that's helpful for you.
It is. I mean, we've talked about this before, as a matter of fact. So, I won't be aware if there's nothing. So,
is that helpful to? Put
yeah. In some ways, this is future tripping.
Yeah, fortune telling.
Yeah.
So, how much do you believe these thoughts?
Oh, definitely 100.
And now, does that reduce the concern here?
Probably down to 10.
10, so that's fine. So maybe we should just kick into externalization of voices gear now.
I'd love that.
And go into high-speed stuff.
Or double standard.
Double standard, too, yeah. Mm-hmm. But again, why was that so easy?
Well, I've obviously been doing a lot of thinking about this, and if I put myself in somebody else's perspective, then this opens a different door.
Is this real, or are you just helping out Matt and David?
No, this is really mind-boggling. I didn't expect this. I didn't expect this to happen this quickly. I really didn't.
Isn't it interesting how we have so much power in our minds to treat ourselves with warmth and compassion and logic, and yet we fall into this hole of self-hatred and suffering, and that we are approaching that from a scientific, psychological point of view. But as you know so well, this is a spiritual issue at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Matt will now explain what that means. Or Marilyn will.
I think it's over my head. Well, I'd love to do the double standard.
I can address a little bit of that. I've been honored to have encountered people who have a very deep spiritual life, and it's almost palpable. I mean, you can see it, you can feel it, I can experience it. I'm in absolute awe of it. Absolute awe of it. And that,
like the Pope might be like that?
Francis, but I'm thinking of the founding abbess of the monastery I go to, Miriam. I mean, she was a mystic, so she clearly walked with the divine, however one wants to define that.
What's her name?
Miriam.
Oh,
was Miriam.
Sister Miriam?
Well, yeah. But she always went by Miriam.
Oh.
She didn't like the titles.
Is part of what's mind-boggling that you have that inside yourself as well?
I would hope. Yeah, I think
that's what's happening today, right?
Yeah, you're right. And I think I've experienced that with you all and other people. And certainly, again, nature. is a source of that. I mean, I'm again awestruck with sunsets or the moon, or how I'm jealous that my dog Maggie is always in the present moment. Except at 5 o'clock when she begins to get up and say, "It's dinner time."
Yeah, right, right, yeah.
Or it's time for me to go out.
Yeah.
But so
that's why I've loved the cats, just to be with them. And I used to say to Obi, one of us is, I told you this, one of us is going to die before the other one, and I don't know if it'll be me or you, but we better just love each other and love our time together right now. And well, anyway, show us how to do the double standard technique.
That's a really beautiful message, David.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, Miss Obi. But I can see his picture.
Oh yeah, me too. I see his face.
It just brings warm feeling every time I see that photo of him.
Yeah. I had a dream about him the other night. I dreamt that he kind of came to me, like he flew to me or something, and just let me know like everything was okay. And then in the dream, I told Melanie, and she said, "Oh, I've been dreaming about him too." That was all a dream, but
This is a good dream.
Yeah, speaking of this life after death, I was really struck when I was in Nicaragua that when you mentioned somebody who had died, their response always was presente, like the person was still present in their lives. I think because of the influence they continued to have, especially like people like Oscar Romero or family members and animals as well. So
right, that we all have a form of immortality.
Yeah, I didn't. This is very insightful. I never really. I mean, I can see that for others. It's hard for me to see it for myself. I can really, because I've experienced it with other people, and I definitely experienced the what I consider to be unconditional acceptance and love, which I think is again spiritual qualities from the working with both of you.
Well, let's advance this to yet a higher plane. Show us how to do the paradoxical double standard technique with some of these other negative
I'd be delighted to see if I could set that up. The double standard's just a really empathic method for helping someone in a role play defeat their negative thoughts. And I would play the role of Marilyn's twin, like a twin from a parallel universe, and we're great friends. We've had all the same experiences our whole life, and all of the same thoughts and emotional responses. And I'm coming to you because I need some help and some guidance today from you. I've also recently been diagnosed and terrified of lung cancer, and gone through all of the procedures, a surgery. I've had fluid drained out of my lungs. I've been told that my treatment is too expensive for me. And I've had all the same feelings of terror and guilt, inferior feelings, lonely feelings. And I could really use your help today. And would you be willing to help me out?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
One of the things that I'm struggling with is this idea that I've really wasted so much of my life drinking, and I just feel so guilty about that. Isn't that true? That's very bad of me, and I shouldn't have wasted that time.
Well, I admire you for being aware of that insight, and my sense is, given what you've shared about yourself, is that you didn't completely waste all that time. That you somehow, and not somehow, that you did impact people, especially when you weren't drinking, and that was where you weren't drinking 24/7. But I do believe that the feelings that you're feeling about the past have been a motivator for you to, turn your life around in the present moment. And I think that's remarkable, because a lot of people don't have that awareness or don't have that opportunity. They die drunk.
And I've been able to turn that around, and do a lot of wonderful things in my life. Is that what you're saying?
Definitely. That's one of the reasons I admire you.
Do I need to feel guilty about that?
I think a little bit of guilt is good because I think it serves as a motivator so that you're looking at this present moment and the future, but more in the present moment. But I don't think you need to beat yourself up and flagellate yourself about the past because you can't change it, but you can learn from it.
So I don't need to feel 100% guilty?
I don't think you should. No, definitely not.
And are you telling me the truth, or are you just bullshitting me to be nice to me?
No, I'm being very honest with you. I'm not bullshitting you.
And if that's true for me over here, is that also, and we're twins, is that true for you as well?
Yes. And I really believe that now.
Great.
So do you want to write that in the right-hand column here, your daily mood log, about the wasting time? And what did you say now? You came up with something really awesome.
Do you remember that at all? My mind's
just be the friend again.
Okay, yeah, I'm just feeling really guilty, and I'm telling myself I've wasted so much of my time, so much of my life because of my alcoholism, and I feel maybe I kind of should feel guilty.
But I don't think you wasted 100% of your life.
Okay.
And I think the guilt has been a motivator for you to be more present now, and to make, and you've made a complete 100 and whatever that. Okay.
Get that gold on paper.
Yeah.
It's funny how quickly it can fly away.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That, like, there's these two parts of the brain, and if you sink back into that other part, then all of a sudden you can't even remember it.
Yeah. Yeah. We wake up and then we fall back to sleep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's so awesome, it's hard to really take it in, but I am taking it in.
I like that perspective.
Okay, I think I got it.
How much do you believe that?
I believe that 100%.
And what's the belief in this one now? Gone down to? We don't bring this to 0, but what can we bring it down to?
5.
5, great. Can I take a turn now?
Absolutely.
We'll take turns. And I'm, again, this friend of Marilyn's. Well, you really helped me with that thought a lot. But I have another thought that could you help me with? And I've been telling myself that, I'm not as spiritual as others, as a lot of other people. And that I should be more spiritual, because sometimes I doubt even the existence of God, and I feel that shows that I'm bad and shameful and defective, and right? It shows that I'm bad, does it?
I just think bringing up the topic that you're not feeling spiritual as others already says that you're spiritual.
Would you put that right here? This thought shows that I'm spiritual, and is that true, or are you just being nice to me?
No, I think that's very true.
But shouldn't I have this powerful conviction in spirituality?
I think you already have it. I think it's growing.
But sometimes I doubt the existence of God. Is that wrong of me? Did I tell you that I had a vision from God once when I was jogging?
No.
This happened. I was in Gladwin jogging home from the train station. And while I was jogging, God came to me in a vision. And he or she said, "David, if you believe in me, I'll be really disappointed." I said, "Don't worry, big guy, I've got your back."
I can see you doing that.
And he went on his way. He was satisfied. You're
Amherst College philosophy majors don't go there very easily. Could I see the mood log?
Well, I want to finish. I want to.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah.
I'm getting back to that you don't feel spiritual others. I think you've had I know you've had, because we've had similar experiences. I know you've had experiences where you've been caught in the sense of complete awe.
Put that here. When I'm around David. And Matt.
That's true at some level.
And
when are we going to get our robes, Steve?
Yeah. And then
your halos.
Our halos, yeah.
No, I was thinking of John Muir had a quote which I just heard recently, and which I really believe. He said, "If you want to see the face of God, go to Yosemite."
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's why nature's so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So how much do you believe this?
100.
Uh-huh. And then how much do you believe this?
5.
5. Right. So it's your turn. I think that was mine, right?
Yeah, yes. That was great.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. And again, I have two quick questions here. The first from a teaching point. Here you say you're dying of cancer. Now we're giggling uncontrollably. Is that unethical or,
Well, I'm reminding of Norman Cousins when he was dying, or told he was dying. He was in a hospital bed in those days, and he rented all the Marx Brothers movies, I Love Lucy episodes, and he couldn't stop laughing. And other people, the doctors, nurses came in, and within like a month or two, the cancer was in complete remission.
Yeah.
So I think laughter, I'm now learning that. I mean, it's worked for me in the past, but today it's really become a reality of how. Emotionally I'm feeling different. Physically I'm feeling different. Even spiritually I'm feeling different. It's like this, I feel like I'm putting on, when you go to the eye doctor and they put these different, and you can't see.
Yeah.
And all
now
of a
you're
sudden
coming back
like
into
clarity.
focus. Yeah.
It's got this clarity.
Yeah. You're waking up again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then why is that happening so quickly? We're moving slowly because we're at a leisurely pace, but you've been struggling with this and suffering with this for, quite a prolonged period of time, and now suddenly you're just flying out of it like a canary flying out of its cage and flying around freely and easily. And again, why is that happening so quickly?
Well, number one, because I think I trust both of you. And number two, I think these techniques really work.
But what is working? What does that mean? Like a listener will say, "Here, these techniques really work," and they'll say, "What techniques? What's working? Like what is she talking about?"
Well, I think looking at the cognitive distortion. Well, number one, looking at the feelings and looking at what was, positive about them. That's just mind-boggling. Looking at the cognitive distortions. And then being able to change the negative thoughts into positive thoughts. And then doing the double standard technique.
Should we fly into externalization of voices?
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
It's your turn. And we might need to introduce the technique. This is a slightly more... Well, that was a very totally powerful technique, but a kindly technique. You want to try an aggressive technique? Okay.
So in externalization of voices, David and I would both take turns playing your negative thoughts, just like they might occur in your own mind, and then you would have a chance to do battle with them, or maybe you could think of like two different ways of defeating us. One would be through argumentation, talking back, finding the illogic, the irrational component of what we're telling you, and then the other maybe more Eastern philosophy would be to accept and embrace the truth in some of the negative thoughts in a graceful, joyful way. So that would be the acceptance paradox. The latter is the acceptance paradox. The former is the defense. And so, so who will we be playing?
Me, my negative thoughts.
Yeah, we'll be playing your negative thoughts. And who will you be?
Either the person arguing or accepting.
Okay, great. And are there some, which thoughts would you really like to defeat? Which point out a couple so we know where to start.
I'm going to die in this one. I'm going to die sooner than later.
Okay, yeah. Hi. I'm your negative thoughts, Marilyn, and I don't mean to bring you down or bum you out. I just wanted to let you know you're going to die sooner rather than later.
that may or may not be true, because I don't know the outcome of this medication, and it's
That's a tough one.
It's a very tough one.
Yeah, and when it gets, and I agree, I think this is a very tough one, and I would have difficulty with it, but I'd be willing to give it a go. We could do a role reversal where you play the negative thought, and I'd try to respond to it. Okay. And then if that doesn't work, we'll give it to David.
Marilyn, I really hate to be the bearer of good news, but
good news, you said.
Bad news. Freudian slip or whatever. Hopeful slip. I really hate to be the bearer of really, really bad news. But you're going to die sooner than later.
And I have some sadness when I think about that, because I love life so much, and I feel so joyful experiencing just all the little things in life. And my plan is going to be to enjoy all of those things as much as possible up until the very end, and not get too caught up with what the future holds. And I also have a question. You said I'm going to die sooner rather than later. When?
I don't know.
Oh, neither do I.
Yeah.
How did that do?
Good. I like that.
What did you like about it?
I think it combined the acceptance and the challenging of it, and it seemed very hopeful for me.
I have I can take a crack at that one.
Yeah, give it to David,
and then we'll do a role reversal too. But go ahead.
So, I've looked at all the medical information about you, and
oh, you have. You're very good at that.
I'm obsessive about it, to tell you the truth. You're going to die sooner than later.
Well, that's true of all human beings. But I have another problem much greater than that.
Which is?
Listening to your bullshit. Do you see that at all?
Yes.
And what is the point of that? That's a good one. This is another way of saying the same thing. What is the point?
Because you don't know.
Well, but even if we did know.
Well, it's going to happen sooner or later anyway.
Yeah, and
you're going to die.
Is the problem the cancer or beating up on yourself?
Beating up on myself.
That's the
issue.
That's the problem. And then I could say, in a way, the cancer's it's painful and sad, but it's been a blessing because it's waking me up.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
So who won?
I did, or you did. We did.
Yeah. Now let's try a role reversal. You
okay, so we're back to being the negative thoughts then. Mm-hmm. And Marilyn, again, actually, I do kind of want to bring you down by telling you that you're going to die sooner than later.
That may be true. That may not be true. What is true is that I'm going to die. But I think having this diagnosis really has been a blessing in disguise, because it's enabling me to appreciate every single day, and to have the motivation to live each day to the fullest capacity that I possibly can, and to continue to be of service to others.
I'm feeling put in my place. Did you win there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge? And how did
you
win huge here? What allowed you to? Because we were saying this was so tough a minute ago, and now you've smashed it. What happened?
I think it was the acceptance and the hope combined, and being really aware of really needing to be in the present moment.
Yeah, but it's also the cognitive model that we're creating our own emotional reality at every moment of every day. That's a spiritual concept, and I can be awake today, and this can be a joyous experience right here.
Definitely.
Or I can throw ink in this beaker of water and make it miserable for myself. But it's my thoughts rather than
Yeah, I'm getting more and more that this is surprising me, since I've been doing this model for some time, how strong the negative thoughts really are, and how much they really do drag me down.
Yes, and how it can be invisible that's the cause of my suffering. It's such a basic concept that it's almost invisible. Even to gifted cognitive therapists don't get it most of the time.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's my turn here.
I have another possible way of responding to that thought. I think we've smashed it into oblivion, but I wondered if this other way works too, which is it's true that I'm going to die and suffer, and that's precisely what connects me with every other person alive today and who has ever lived. That I'm actually in really good company through that suffering and through that dying process. Is that a useful response?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, now
give it over to
By the
David
way,
there.
somebody gave me a book, a gift of a book, but I don't read. And I'll give it to you if you want. I've gotten 2 gift books that I won't be reading, actually. You're happy to give them both to you, should you have the interest. Again, they're beautiful books, but I'm like Donald Trump, I don't read.
But you can't talk.
Yeah, I talk like Trump.
Unlike him.
But one is called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, and it's written by some modern Buddhist guy. And the other is called The Buddha in the Mirror.
Really?
Yeah, and Practical Buddhism. And so if you
I'd be interested.
remind me, then you can tell me what they're about. Okay, which one should I hit you with here?
This one, I can't believe I have cancer.
Yeah, could I talk to you for a minute? You know who I am, and Marilyn, and of course I'm that negative Marilyn. I just want to let you know that I can't believe that you have cancer. Because you didn't smoke?
No.
You don't deserve it? And you thought you were going to have a nice long life?
Yeah, this did come as a shocking surprise. But the reality is that I do have cancer, and I now have a choice. It feels like there's a fork in the road. One, I can do my little pity party and feel sorry for myself and isolate and become dark, and the other is to be, which I'm trying to do, is to be in the present moment, to be very, very grateful. So, in many ways, this diagnosis has been a wake up call and an invitation to a more grace filled life.
Who won?
I did.
Big or small?
Huge.
Yeah, it was huge. It's your
I didn't even
turn.
think I was wondering who was. I'm being channeled.
Yeah, isn't it interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can I just have one more round?
Of
here?
course, David. This is your show.
Well, that may be true, but don't forget that you've been duped by religion and religions. You've been duped big time, and don't you forget it.
Yeah, I think part of that is true. I think I'm not the only person I think that's been duped, but yeah, I was duped, especially growing up as a kid in the Catholic Church. But I think I've moved. I'm moving and have moved beyond that, so I don't feel really duped because I've experienced in a very deep way. And I'd rather change the word from religion to spirituality because I think that's more inclusive. I don't feel duped by spiritual approaches to living and to life.
Who won?
I did.
Big or small?
Huge.
Yeah.
Again.
And could you add to it? And furthermore, I'm going to stop worrying about being duped by religion, and I'm going to start teaching.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Or living it.
Yeah.
Which is a form of teaching.
Yeah. And that fork in the road, by the way, is not a choice when you have a terminal illness diagnosis. We all have a terminal illness diagnosis, right? Mm-hmm. But that's a choice that people listening to this broadcast, their situation may be different from your own. The details will be different. But that's a decision that we all have at every moment of every day, to go to the dark or to go to the light. That probably sounds corny. So I will shut up and let Matt continue.
No,
I like your corniness, David.
I think that's true. I think I have a tendency to be very pessimistic, so I feel like yes. So I feel like I can choose to walk around with a dark cloud over my head, or I can choose to, be awed by the moon or the sunset, and not feel different. Then I think I told you this story. I don't know that you've heard this. Years ago, a group of us were protesting at the Federal Building. So afterwards, we decided to go to the top of the Bank of America building for a glass of wine, and we were dressed in our protest clothes. And when we got to the top of the B of A building, of course, people were dressed in their business clothes. And so we sat there mumbling and, putting them down. And they were obviously mumbling and putting us down. And all of a sudden the sun started setting behind the Golden Gate Bridge. And spontaneously, the whole bar stood up and started applauding.
Oh, wow.
And I realized we're not any different.
Yeah, right.
We're not any... It was very humbling for me to realize beautiful. That. And to be aware of my judgmentalism, which is very strong.
Oh, yes. Right. Yeah, we judge others and we judge ourselves. Creates hatred and moral superiority, and we judge others, and suffering when we judge ourselves. And spirituality and recovery is escape from that system of blame and judgment.
I love what both of you are saying, and I also have a few other negative thoughts that I can try to bring up here, hopefully with the same result, that we'll transform them like alchemy into real gold here. The first one I have is I don't want to have cancer. Mm-hmm. That seems also like a true thought, like there's a feeling in there, like I really don't want to have cancer. Is that, what kind of emotions are coming up when you read that? I don't want to have
it's
cancer.
Anger. I mean, I don't want to have cancer. It's like when I get the flu, I don't want to have the flu.
Yeah, it's unfair.
Yeah, it's unfair. I mean, why should I be stuck in with the stomach flu? But it is what it is.
I love that. So could I present you with that, like a should version of that thought? Isn't it unfair? Isn't it true that you shouldn't have cancer?
Because you don't want it, so you shouldn't have to have it.
Yeah, and I have never smoked, so I shouldn't have.
Yeah, you've never smoked?
I shouldn't have lung cancer.
You shouldn't have lung cancer.
But I do, and I have to accept that. I can't change it.
Good, who won that?
I did.
Okay. How about this next one? Does that say defective?
I've never had a life partner.
Life partner.
Okay. And so is the idea that you're defective because you've never had a... Okay. So, Marilyn, I'm your negative thoughts again. I wanted to let you know that you're defective. Have you ever had a life partner?
I was involved in a relationship for a period of time, yes.
Well, that doesn't count, so you're defective.
I am. I do have my defects, and I think I learned that my defects, to some degree, caused the end of that relationship. But I'm grateful that we have remained very, very good friends. So and I don't know the future. I may find a life partner. I'm fortune telling about what may or may not be.
Good. Who won there?
I did.
Good. Big or small?
Big. Huge.
Huge? Excellent.
I think so.
I'll give you another answer to that, but we don't need it. But I have 4 life partners in this room at the moment. This is life, and I'm connecting closely with people. I don't know if that's a value. Mm-hmm.
I'd never thought about that. Yeah, that's true.
And I can be doing this all the time. Right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and we always have ourselves as our own life partner.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, it's reminding myself to be conscious of that.
Yeah.
Because I think that negative thoughts take over and weigh me down instead of.
Yeah.
I'm getting it, how strong the negative thoughts really...
Yeah, that's the problem, not having some life partner.
Or disease.
Yeah,
it's the negative thoughts about X,
Y, or Z.
Isn't
that interesting?
It's fast. Again, I've been doing this for years now, and it's like I'm finally kind of getting much more clarity about how this really...
I think when I saw on TV, which is like Trump, my source of information since I don't read, that there was a program about the Buddha. And I probably didn't even remember this correctly, but he had all these followers when he was alive, like 100,000 or something, or 4 or something. Like 100,000, but only 3 of them achieved enlightenment. And I think it was frustrating to him because what he was trying to say was so easy and obvious, and yet people couldn't get it. And it's the same. I mean, that is what we're talking about here.
You've really paved the road to enlightenment, David, through your efforts and attentiveness to, I think, all of the different aspects of the team model, being careful to measure outcomes scientifically, to bring science into psychotherapy.
I hope it catches on. I hope I hope people grasp it, because it's been fantastic to have so many dear colleagues and talented colleagues to evolve it. But sometimes I sit back and say, this is really something so different, like from the way, we were trained, like in residency, just sitting and listening and say, tell me more, and just goes on and on forever. Let's just take a look here. Is there anything left?
I think what also makes this more very powerful, again, is the compassion I'm feeling, the empathy.
Yeah, it has to be there.
And that it's really a dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's like that phrase where the answer lies within.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just allowing people to get access to it really quickly, so you just don't spend decades wondering, what does it mean, the answer, look within, what does all that mean? It sounds like mumbo-jumbo.
And paying, thousands of dollars, and basically getting over or getting worse. Because
this isn't a thousands, though, just like $1,200.
You take credit cards?
Are there any of the negative thoughts that remain? We haven't hit them all, so see if there's something, because they're all going to be easy for you to smash at this point. Is there anything left?
No.
And then later, Fabrice, I don't know if you know how to use Dropbox, but we can get you a copy of the recording, right? And then you'll want to write down the negative thought, the positive thoughts, complete the daily mood log on paper, and listen to the recording.
Oh, definitely.
But let's do a couple end of session things here and see how you're feeling just at this moment, right now. How sad and depressed are you feeling just right now?
Probably 5.
5. And then how anxious?
2.
2. How ashamed? 0.
0.
0 on that. And that one was defective.
Inferior. 0 on lonely.
0 lonely.
Hopeless, discouraged. I'd say a 1.
1.
Frustrated, a 1. Angry. A 1.
A 1. And so you exceeded all of your goals, and all of these negative feelings, everything was 5%, 2%, 1%, 0%. So this looks like this mind-boggling high-speed change in the way you've been feeling. And again, what would you say were the healing dimensions? What brought this about? It's question number 1. And question number 2, is this real or some contrived thing for the purpose of a podcast? And you did a good job. We from the modeling agency, send the actor for today's fake. You seem very real.
I am very real.
So, what were the healing dimensions? Because a lot of people listening, they'll say, "Well, I've been in therapy for." Well, I had a hiker.
Decades.
Well, who had I won't say anything to reveal anything, but 18 years of therapy without much, if any, tangible change, and just twice a week of talking and listening, and maybe there was some value there, but she couldn't remember any. but this was something very, very fast. And why did this happen so rapidly? And was it real? Has there been a change in the way you feel?
Yeah, it's been very real, and definitely there's been a change in how I'm feeling. As I said, I'm feeling different emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And I think, it goes back to the empathy I'm experiencing. I was, again, just blown away by looking at my feelings and seeing the positives and the advantages of having those feelings. And
but just say, why did that help you? Why, because usually we think about depression, the people want attention, they get secondary gain. We look at motives for maintaining symptoms in this very negative perspective, that the people are afraid of change, they want to feel sorry for themselves, they want to get attention from other people. And that's the way I was taught to think about therapeutic resistance, is this bad part of the person's character or something like that. And what we're doing here is saying that you resist letting go of your symptoms because they're actually the expression of the most beautiful part of you. And we came up with this list of 43 beautiful things about you, like humility. And then that was real. It wasn't something contrived. It wasn't like a fake compliment. And then why you're saying that touched you in some way? Can you?
Well, I think my tendency is to live in the negative, quote unquote, negative feelings and negative thoughts, and to realize that there is there can be the opportunity of seeing the positive in feeling sad and depressed or anxious or guilty. That it's a complete, for me, it's been a complete reversal. It's like, wow, I never would even think of looking at as depression as somehow revealing something that's good about me or positive or awesome. So I think it's the paradox. It's the complete paradox of this seeing things from an entirely different perspective.
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
I think all of these things are helpful. How would you put it, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's kind of making friends with the enemy in a way.
Yeah.
When we're being critical of ourselves, we oftentimes feel so crummy as a result of that we feel like we have to do battle with the critic rather than notice what the beauty in the critic is. And when we've done that, the critic just kind of rolls over.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And then another thing I was thinking about, maybe Fabrice will have some questions for you, Matt, and maybe even for Marilyn too. But it's something phenomenal to say, and I have no idea what it was now.
You'll think of it as soon as I start talking.
Yeah.
I wanted to wonder how do you do relapse prevention these days? Is that still an important aspect of the treatment? And
yeah. There's just a couple. We could do a little quick relapse prevention training here. These negative thoughts, all this will come back full blown. Mm-hmm. Right?
Definitely.
And so there's three parts that I think about of relapse prevention training. The first thing is for you to know that all this will come back. And that's not bad, that's not shocking. The Buddha said we all drift in and out of enlightenment, and no one is entitled to be feeling in this spiritually enlightened state or the happy state all the time. The second thing you need to know is that it's okay when you relapse because you can pick up these same exact tools and go through this exact process. You can even listen to the tape again, but you need to write down the negative thoughts, identify the distortions in them, and talk back to them, as well as say to yourself, what do these negative thoughts and feelings show about me that's positive and awesome? The techniques that helped you today will always help you. The third thing is to talk back to the thoughts that might come up when you have a relapse, and we could jot down a couple of them right now and then smash them. Like, take a piece of paper and let's just. Do you have a blank piece, or I can Well, you can put them right here on another daily mood log.
Okay.
And what are you going to tell yourself? Like one negative thought was the treatment didn't really work, something like that.
No.
Like when you relapse, say tomorrow or in a week from now. What like a lot of times people say, oh, this shows that the treatment wasn't effective, or shows I'm really hopeless, or what are the relapse thoughts that you might have?
Yeah, the techniques didn't work.
Yeah, techniques didn't work.
I'm a failure.
I'm a failure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a failure.
Here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again. And my problems are real, right?
Definitely.
I was just fooling myself at Burns' house.
My problems are very real.
Yeah. It really is hopeless.
Yes, it is hopeless.
And also, we could just throw in one of these, I'm not spiritual enough.
Okay.
Any of these can be added.
Right.
Can I also throw out one other thought? I think it's a tempting thought that we want to have permanent enlightenment, just like I'd like to have a permanently perfect body. I'd like to work out just once in my life and get the body that I want.
Yeah, that's
I'll floss
right,
my teeth so well
Yeah.
that I never have to floss my teeth.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for...
I shouldn't relapse, or I should be happy now.
or there should be some type of treatment that is permanent.
Oh, yeah.
I
Treatment
should go look for that other better thing.
Yeah, treatment.
Rather than just do what...
Should be, but maybe the psychodynamic people were right after all.
Not deep enough there.
Yeah.
Or Trump is right.
Yeah. Now, let's do externalization of voices. Imagine it's 2 weeks from now, and you woke up and you're suddenly in this very bad mood, and you're 100% depressed and angry. And what is your name?
Marilyn.
What's my name?
Marilyn.
And could I talk to you for a minute, Marilyn?
Yes.
I just want to remind you that this proves that the treatment didn't work.
I disagree with that. Today's just is a bad day, and I have to go back and listen to the tape again and write down, do exactly what I was told to do. I have to write down my negative thoughts, see what positive, awesome things come out of my feelings, look at the cognitive distortions, and then write down my positive thoughts. So the techniques haven't worked today because I haven't worked them.
Who won?
I did.
Big or small? Big or huge?
Huge.
Huge. Okay, your turn.
Yeah, Marilyn, I'm concerned that this relapse means something bad about you. I think it means that you're a failure.
Again, I may feel like a failure right now because I woke up feeling like a failure, but I haven't given myself a chance here doing the techniques again and listening to the tape. So I didn't fail on the 10th of June, and I'm not a complete failure. It's just I'm having a bad day right now, and I think I have the capacity to turn that around.
Who won there?
I did.
Big or small?
Big. Huge.
Big or huge? Huge. Okay.
But Marilyn, I know you beat us down on that idea that you're a failure, but there's this other negative thought that you won't be able to defeat. Your problems are real.
That's true. My problems are very real, and but I don't have to let my negative thoughts be as destructive as they can be. I can accept the fact that I have cancer, and but I don't have to, again. I can choose to challenge those negative thoughts and turn them into positive thoughts, and move forward.
Who won?
I did.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge?
Huge.
Huge. Okay, your turn.
Well, here we go again. This relapse is going to be never ending. You're not going to be able to get out of it.
Well, I think every day it's going to be here we go again, and again it's going to be I can get weighed down by my negative thoughts, or I can utilize the techniques that I learned here today and apply them in the future. And maybe even kind of laugh that, oh, here we go again. This is another opportunity to learn something new. And who knows how my negative thoughts may change this time.
Good. Who won there?
I think I did.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge? Huge? Okay.
Yeah, that may be true, Marilyn. I know you beat down that other negative Marilyn, but this one... Oh, no, it's your turn. Or is it my turn?
It's your turn.
I think
It's my
David-
turn, yeah.
David's turn.
Yeah, I just want to remind you that you're not spiritual enough. And there's some other, like, spiritual giants out there.
I'm not walking in the shadow of them.
Are we done with that one?
Yeah.
Okay, your
Just
turn.
touch the clothing. Have a cup of tea with them.
I'm more spiritual than you.
Maybe I can walk on water now.
Maybe if you've had a relapse, that means that this type of therapy is incomplete, that there's something missing in you, that you need to try something else that's different and goes deeper.
No, I don't want to go there. I've seen it. I have had the privilege of seeing this technique work with other people, and it's been unbelievable. And I really can't believe how different I feel right now because of this experience. So I know this technique works. It's just I have to remind myself to, when I get bogged down by my negative thoughts, or if I get overwhelmed by my feelings, is to, turn the page and, go back to these techniques because been there, done that, and it's worked.
But aren't you entitled to permanent recovery forever?
I don't think anybody's entitled to permanent recovery. I think it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, hopefully, from my experience, every time I learned something new. It's, like in the olden days when I practiced the piano, it's, practice, and then all of a sudden one day, it's, I can actually get through this piece of music.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like Oscar Levant, who, because he couldn't play the piano perfectly, drove himself crazy.
And it's that process of growth that's fun and pleasurable.
Yeah, and it's spiritual.
Yeah. So you're saying relapse is fun?
Yeah,
and spiritual?
it can be.
Yeah.
Possibility.
Well, this has been a great gift that you've given to us, and hopefully to many people who will hear this this podcast. I can't thank you enough.
Same with me, Marilyn. I feel so grateful that you came today, and David, it's great working with you as always.
Oh yeah, this was, and we kind of created something beautiful here today, creation, and because it's recorded, who knows what reverberations it will have.
Let's hope.
And this has been such a gift for me because, I admire both of you so much and have such respect and a deep love for both of you. And so I know that when I go home, I can envision this room with Fabrice and the beautiful trees and just being here in the space.
Look at the moving.
I know, the leaves. They're changing.
Yep.
And when one leaf falls, it doesn't say, oh, damn, I fell.
Yeah, right.
It's just my turn.
Right. Okay, and then we'll report later on the end of session scores on the brief mood survey. And
Very good.
Okay.
And this concludes the live session with Marilyn. This has been, I quoted earlier Marilyn saying this is mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing for me just to witness it. And I know that a lot of our listeners appreciate this. Those live sessions have been very popular. Just to give a preview of a coming attraction, David, you did an intensive several weeks ago, and the person you work with recorded the session on a cell phone. So the audio is not going to be fantastic, but the content is just amazing. And so we're going to be editing that coming up soon and publish it on the podcast. So that's something to look forward to. And again, I'm asking our listeners to please leave a review on iTunes, forward a link to the podcast and to the website to friends and colleagues, and to leave comments and questions on the website in the show notes. And by the way, we will have the mood survey and the daily mood log copied onto the show notes for all 3 segments, so that people can follow along as you guys are doing this. This may be a little bit late to say this, but that's what we'll have. And I would like to give Marilyn the last and final word about this, and see where she's at after this 2.5-hour session.
I'm feeling an incredible sense of peace and acceptance and gratitude. I came in here feeling very anxious and wondering, is this really going to be helpful? And my mind is just blown, and I feel like my heart has been cracked open in a very positive way. So I'm just really, really grateful, and I think this is one of the most incredible approach to psychotherapy that I have experienced and utilized. So,
thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. This was just an amazing experience. And what we'll do is I'm going to leave a raw sound file of the session in its entirety for people to listen from start to finish. And looking forward to our next podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
A massive audience.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes for this podcast under the blog page, and where you can leave your comments and questions. The website has an abundance of resources for therapists as well as non-therapists, including books, workshops, a list of online training groups around the world, and much more. Theme music is Gypsy Jazz in Paris, 1935, composed and performed by Brett Van Donsel. I am your host, Fabrice Nye, and I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.